Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Johnson.
Thank you very much. Tonight we're going to be looking at crop circles. I don't know that much about secret societies, and they don't really come into this discussion much tonight. But we will be talking about crop circles, and we're going to look at various types of evidence. My website's called Check the Evidence, as some of you know, so this is exactly the same approach for this presentation. We'll attempt to gain a better understanding of the crop circle phenomenon. That's the objective. We'll look at the history of crop circles, the evidence for man or woman-made crop circles, evidence for crop circles being made by weather or atmospheric phenomena, evidence for crop circles made by extraterrestrials or other forms of higher consciousness, and I do think that's involved here. Possible meanings of the crop circles, and looking at some crop circle messages. And I think what I would like to say in all of this is that you can get some answers. You can establish some things as being true. And I hope by the end of this presentation you've seen the evidence to agree with me. It's not all a total mystery. We can say certain things with a high degree of certainty. Same with 9/11 research. So let's have a look at a brief history of crop formations and find out what that can tell us, if anything. One of the earliest descriptions of crop formations is some drawings of two UK crop formations described in 1686 by Professor Robert Plott. And Plott examined multiple such formations and states that the soils under all of them were much looser and drier than ordinary, and the parts interspersed with a white ore, much like that in mouldy bread, of a musty, rancid smell, but to the taste insipid. And this is from a natural history of Staffordshire, dated, as it said earlier, in 1686. Now, there's some references to this story which say that, it was made up, or there's no evidence to suggest that it was ever published, or, the sketches weren't actually attached to the original manuscripts, things of this sort. So there's some doubts over this among researchers, but that was one of the earliest references I could find. There's a little bit more on the next slide. Now, this crop formation from the same era, also from a natural history of Staffordshire, occurred in St Giles Fields at University College. And the cloud and trumpet light diagram, which is this thing here, illustrates Plott's hypothesis that crop formations must needs be the effects of lightning exploded from the clouds. So he was saying that lightning exploded from the clouds and made this square within a circle formation, for example. So it does go back quite a long way. And in this case, the clouds breaking first in a quadrangular and after in a wider circular form. So how a cloud would break in a square or quadrangle form, I'm not sure. He didn't really explain that part, but that was his guess at that time. And then, of course, the other picture that's often referenced in the research is this mowing devil that you'll see this sort of everywhere, really. And this comes from 1678, and the pamphlet tells of a farmer who, refusing to pay the price demanded by a labourer to mow his field, swore that he would rather that the devil mowed it instead. According to the pamphlet, that night his field appeared to be in flame. The next morning the field was found to be perfectly mowed, supernaturally perfect in fact. So again, that's going back, over 300 years. Now, we then skip forward to July 1880, and the prestigious journal Nature, volume 22, page 290 to 91, published a letter from British spectroscopist J. Round Kaplan, in which he described his discovery and subsequent examination of multiple circular areas of flattened wheat on a farm in southern England. And he describes a crop forming circular spots with a few standing stalks as a centre, some prostrate stalks with their heads arranged pretty evenly in a direction forming a circle round the centre, and outside these a circular wall of stalks which have not suffered. So in other words, it was affected in one area but not in others. Kaplan suggested that these flattened circles were the result of some cyclonic wind action. So again, we're getting a weather explanation. And enclosed a sketch of the most perfect of these circles, but the Nature journal did not publish a sketch apparently, so we don't appear to have a copy of that. And then we'd probably skip forward to this, which is the Tully saucer nest. And in some cases, witnesses reported flattened crops following the landing of a saucer. And this, of course, was a very simplistic explanation given to some of the earlier circles as well in the sort of 50s and 60s, basically after 1947, when the modern UFO era is said to have started. At 9 a.m. on January 19th, 1966, a calm, sunny day, a 28-year-old banana farmer named George Pedley was driving a tractor near Horseshoe Lagoon on the property of Albert Panisi near Tully in tropical North Queensland, Australia. When he was about 25 yards from the lagoon, he heard a loud hissing sound above the noise of the tractor. And a short time after the event, this picture here, the saucer's nest, was found on farmland nearby. So that's literally the result of a supposed flying saucer landing or a flying saucer event. And then we again move a bit further forward a few more years, and we move into the 1970s. And folklore and anecdotal evidence suggests that the crop circle history is a long one. And the earliest one, photographed, started in 1966, and these appeared in Australia. Now, I haven't seen any photographs from there. The earliest ones I've got are really from the 1980s. First photographs of crop circles in England were taken in Hampshire in 1978. And more photographic evidence demonstrates worldwide activity with a focus in southern England. I think something like over 80%, maybe even over 90% of all the crop circles in the world have been in southern England. A very high proportion. Now, if you look at this circle here, this is from Colin Andrews' website, and he's tried to analyse the way that this has been made. If you look, the crop has been laid in a spiral, which has its centre in the centre of the circle. And this is from the 31st of July 1985 at Longstock, Hampshire, England. One of 5 found together by Busty Taylor, each with a similar signature. And that's Michael Green's picture from 1985, probably taken, I'm not sure, probably taken from a microlight or a light aircraft or something like that. And then 5th of August 1989, at Winterbower Stoke, near Stonehenge, England, with the signature almost radial. And that was one of Colin Andrews' photographs. We'll talk quite a bit about Colin Andrews, because he's one of the main researchers who's been collecting data for 20 years now, and he's got some very interesting information, very interesting. And I rate him as one of the sort of strongest scientific crop circle researchers, really. He's tried to gather the scientific data. And you see the different dimensions to this phenomenon, really. One is the sort of basic scientific issue as to what's making the circles. But as we'll see, we then start to get to the realms of consciousness and what the meaning is, and whether it is some type of consciousness that's trying to send us a message. And I think there is something in that as well. Now moving again on to some more pictures from the 80s. This is from, let's see, 1972 account. Suddenly I heard a noise. It seemed as if something pushed down the wheat. That night, the air was completely still. I looked around. The moon had just appeared, shining brightly. In front of my eyes, I could see a great imprint taking shape. The wheat was forced down in a clockwise direction, and that's an account by Bryce Bond and Arthur Shuttleworth to the first modern crop circles they were witnesses to the first modern crop circles in Warminster, which, as some of you in this room may know, is another one of these UFO hotspots. A lot of the sightings in the 70s and 80s were in Warminster, and they had all these little tours, and people would go there and spend overnight and camp and look for UFOs. But the crop circles were not really a noted phenomenon until perhaps the mid-1980s. That's when the interest really started to sort of ramp up that bit more. And they've been known to appear in tobacco, wheat, oilseed rape, snow, conifer trees and other areas. So we're not just looking at crops that you grow for cereal crops is basically what we're trying to say. There are non-cereal crops that they've appeared in. And they've been reported in 29 different countries. So it is pretty much a global phenomenon. Now this picture I actually took in 1987. It was about in July, because my brother used to live in Chippenham, which is in Wiltshire. And so I used to go and visit him fairly regularly. Now I wasn't really that interested in it. I just, you can see I took this. I didn't really go down inside it or try and investigate it that much more. But it's interesting looking back at taking that picture and finding out, thinking of where I've got to today with it, which is, you'll see later, it gets pretty wild. And then we get into a kind of change, really, in the 1990s. We had the basic circles in the 1980s with maybe 1 or 2 circles like you saw on this circle. Very simple circle in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the outside, looks like a pattern that you see on a dice, you know, or something like that. Very simple design. There's obviously the middle one here, something similar, but nothing really that complicated. But then it was in the 1990s that we started to get these pictograms appearing. And it was on the night of July 10th, 1990, the inhabitants of the village of Alton Barnes heard a peculiar buzzing sound which caused all the dogs in the village to bark incessantly throughout the night. As the dawn light bathed the Vale of Pusey, none of the farmers' cars would start, and as they approached their fields, no one could believe their eyes. The 603-foot pictogram lay majestically in the wheat. And we're going to come back to these types of symbols a bit later, but you can see the scale of these has suddenly gone up. I mean, if you look at the people here and see how small they are, and I'll just again flip back to the previous slide, see that person looks relatively big, and you can get an impression of how much bigger that formation is. It's a lot bigger. And they've got bigger and more complicated. And this is very interesting, this, I've forgotten about this bit actually, because I put this together several years ago and I've added to it, you know, as time's gone on. And just what I'm interested in here, reading here, none of the farmers' cars would start. What does that remind you of? These UFO encounters. Well, that sort of thing happens. And I think I know what the explanation for that is. At least partly at least. And then what we've got, you know, 1990s to present day, I mean, we've got stuff like this. This is from 2001. And there's analysis of this. This is the Milk Hill Formation. And apparently, if you count all the numbers of circles or the numbers on an arm or something, there's some relationship to 9/11 built into this. This is not a relationship to 9/11 that I was talking to some people about. There is another relationship to 9/11 which I'll come to later, a very strong one actually, as I see things from the evidence. And then we've got this one from Milk Hill in 21st of June 2009. This is not a very good angle on it. The aerial ones are better. But this formation was added to over 3 nights, and it actually got more complicated. There was a bit drawn on down here. I don't think I've had a chance to put a picture into this because there's so many. But they actually added to this over 3 nights, and it got more complicated, which is quite unusual. So now we'll look at some of the characteristics of some of the crop or ring formations that have been found and discovered. We're going to start off with the natural explanation just to make sure we cover all the bases. Okay, you hear this mentioned in a little video clip later on. We're going to look at, just briefly on this slide, about fairy rings. A fairy ring, or fairy circle, also known as a pixie ring, is a naturally occurring ring or arc of mushrooms, as you can see here in this picture. The rings may grow over 10 metres in diameter and become stable over time as the fungus grows and seeks food underground. Even if no mushrooms are present, the underground presence of the fungus may sometimes be detected by observing the withering of grass directly above. And I actually saw this on somebody's lawn on our estate last summer. They had a ring like this on their lawn. In English folklore, fairy rings were said to be caused by fairies or pixies dancing in a circle, wearing down the grass beneath their feet. In Scandinavian folklore, these circles were attributed to the elves and were called alvdanser, i.e. elf dancers. So this is where you get the folklore connections. Yeah, quite quick. Okay. And then non-geometric crop flattening as well. This is something that happens naturally. Non-geometric crop formations. Anomalous plant changes documented in geometric crop formations, which we'll come to shortly. Those in which a recognisable design is apparent are also found in many cases in non-geometrically flattened crop, and this is called lodging by many farmers, and thought to be by them to be a result of intense weather systems impinging on plants already weakened by over-fertilisation. If too much nitrogen is applied to the growing crop, the seed heads grow larger and weigh more, thus making the plant stalk more susceptible to wind and rain. In other words, if you've got a heavier stalk on top of the plant, it's going to fall down and the stalk will become bent or break. Testing of quite a few of these non-geometrically flattened impressions, particularly when they are found in vicinities where geometric formations occur regularly, has in a number of cases revealed the same plant or abnormalities, which again we'll come to, found in geometric events, and to a greater degree in most instances. And again, I think some of this is the effect of the weather systems, in some cases at least partly. and you'll see why that is later. And we've got in more geometric crop formations, more expulsion cavities, which again we'll see a slide of this coming up. Holes blown out at the plant stem nodes are also usually found. The germination abnormalities are frequently more pronounced. In other words, the way that the crop grows, the seed grows into a crop, that is also changed. And you'll see I've got some slide later on where if you plant the crops, the seeds that have come from plants inside a crop circle, they will grow differently to the ones that the seeds that you plant from outside the crop circle. The evidence seems to indicate more intense heating, possibly microwave energy, and flattening force discharged in these chaotically down crop areas. Remember microwave energy. We'll mention that again later. Laboratory tests on plants taken from non-geometrically downed areas like these in many different countries often reveal the same changes found in plants from crop circles of more geometrically downed. Essentially said that on the last slide. And this is again from Alton Barnes in Wiltshire, or around Wiltshire. I think it's in Wiltshire, but it's basically where all the other crop circles are in that same area. So yeah, you can see you've got just this. What the picture is trying to show, you've got obviously the circle formations, and then you've got these other areas which seem to have fallen down, and you can see these are pretty random. It just looks like sort of noise. So you know, we can't say that all the crop has been flattened with this whatever process has made them. So yeah, this is basically. I'm not going to read all the text out, but we've already had an example of this. I briefly mentioned. This crop formation, 1998, you can see that the area has changed in 3 weeks later. A bit more gets added to it, and more has fallen down in the field. This sort of revisitation of the energy system involved in creating circles has been seen in all countries studied so far, and it is quite interesting to note that in some cases the revisitation can also produce additional geometric features which seem to complement the original design, rather than resulting in randomly downed additions. So we do seem to get this, somebody goes back and adds more to it, which is not often talked about. Okay, so now we're going to look at one particular mechanism which somebody came up with, and I think there is something in this. What we're talking about is electromagnetic energy and possibly microwave energy, but this is one theory. Now, this was given to me by a chap called Omar Fowler, who did a study in the early 90s, not in Wiltshire, actually surprisingly. He did this quite near where I live. I believe it's near Mansfield. I think you'll see it on the next slide. I can't remember off the top of my head. But what they basically had was, they had a crop circle on the side of a hill, and I'm not sure how high this hill was, but they basically measured, with a meter, the EMF field, the electrostatic sort of charge at ground level near where the crop was. And they found that if you raise this thing above 12 feet in the air with the micrometer, I presume they must have put it onto some type of pole or something, they get a different electrostatic reading above this boundary layer to closer to the ground. And I think this is electromagnetic, what the R stands for, ground wave. So they're saying that there's basically an electrostatic field close to the ground. That's basically what this is showing. That's what they measured near where this crop circle was formed. And it was deeper here than it was at the top of the hill. And it said that below the boundary layer, the electrostatic readings were off the scale, whichever scale they used. So in other words, they detected an electric field at ground level. That's the summary of that. And they think that what could be generated, or the way that that is generated, is through an electrical field that builds up on each of the stalks of the wheat, around the stalks of the wheat. So this diagram shows how a wheat head could build up a charge of static electricity. You know when you take the jumper off and you hear that click in and you get the, if you do it in the dark, you know your hair sticks up and you get a spark sometimes. If you do it in the dark, sometimes you can see the spark. If you've got a woolly jumper, you can actually see the static electricity spark. And it's not difficult to imagine that when blowing continually in the breeze, aside from the voltage, you know, if you've got this crop brushing against each other, blowing in the breeze, you could potentially on a dry day, or a dry couple of days, you can actually get quite a significant build-up of electrical charge. You know, maybe I don't know, 500,000 volts or something, potentially. So what about, and this I think is you'll hear in a clip later on, And there's a physicist called Terence Mead who's kind of like wondered if, well, if we've got this electrical field on the ground around the crop, what if there's some type of interaction with the solar wind, uncertain conditions in the summer? And at a point just before dawn, the Earth's energies are at their maximum level. I think it means, if you think like with the ionosphere, everyone knows that the ionosphere, it goes up during darkness. So that means that the sun's rays are having an effect on the atmosphere, right? So if you imagine that the electrical properties of the atmosphere change at night, certainly with the movement of the ionosphere, and he proposes that the highest changes along the Earth are along the Earth's terminator point, where particle interaction, magnetic interaction, and chemical effects and electrostatic effects are all taking place, because you've got this stream of charged particles called the solar wind coming from the sun and impacting onto the atmosphere. You know, where occasionally we can see the northern lights from England, we're fairly far north, you know, we don't often see them as far south as Wiltshire, but there are some occasions. But even if you don't see the northern lights, there can still be electrostatic activity going on in the atmosphere. So he proposes that there's some type of massive kick of energy under certain conditions, which then can interact with what's happening on the ground with this field of wheat, for example. And he says the action of electromagnetic lines of force results in particle interaction, causing ionisation in the upper atmosphere. The electrostatic and electromagnetic effect of the phenomenon can result in photons being given off, and this may appear in the form of glowing balls of light, or even a column of light. And I've got one witness account by Nancy Tolbert describing that, just that, a column of light coming down, and then she saw the crop circle form. That was in 2001. So have we got some type of interaction between the charge on the ground and the charge in the sky? You know, for some of these things. For the geometric formations, to be honest, I don't really think this explains geometric formations. But it could explain some of the balls of light effects, and maybe, I don't know, maybe one or two circles have been formed in this way, I don't know. I mean, this is really a theory, rather than, you know, it being proved. This is just Terence Mead's theory, and I just want to put this up to make you aware that, yes, you know, we are looking at things like electrical energy, and there could be some type of interaction. I don't think this answers many of the questions, but it might answer one or two. So that's just a bit more explanation of that, you know, pointing out some negative ion concentration on the ground with this, you know, wheat movement and all this sort of thing. You get current building up and stuff like this. Now then, this is right. So this is what was also part of that study, and this was at Cartmont-on-Trent, and this is near Nottingham, just outside Nottingham, and Mansfield. And there don't seem to be that many circles outside of Wiltshire, so this was quite a rare event, I think. But what the point about this is that what that picture is trying to show there with these fancy slippers on is you've got the tape measure at 55 centimetres and the stalks are bent over. So what we're looking at potentially is some type of wavelength effect. I don't know if you know about TV aerials and dipoles and this sort of thing. Some people might know about that in the audience. What if there's some type of dipole effect in the wheat stem? It's acting as some type of aerial or receiver for whatever energy is coming into it. And what was discovered in this study that they did, these are amateur researchers, you know, this isn't done by university or anything, but typically when they lined up, they took samples of these stems of wheat, they found that commonly at the 55 centimetre line, there was a bend in the stalk, and nearby there was a burn mark. You can see that sort of burn there. So you typically get a burn mark on the stem, as if there was like an increase in energy at that point, and the energy was focused onto that point. And this to me is suggestive of some type of wavelength effect. You know, sometimes the stalk is actually being acted on by radiation of a certain wavelength. After studying crop surfaces in 1985 and analysing plant stems from incidents up to 150 miles apart, one common denominator emerged. This was the discovery of single standing stems with top sections bent over at a height of 55 centimetres, that's 22 inches, in an otherwise flattened circle of wheat or barley. So not all of the, only a few of these were left standing. They weren't like all bent like that to make the crop formation. Okay. Now this bit is quite important, and we'll come back to this later. This is what I was alluding to earlier. You can actually see some of these burn marks in the stalks now. And here, it looks like, for example, this has been put in a microwave oven, and whatever it is has heated it up and caused the stem to actually, with the air actually, to blow a hole in the stem. So that's what it looks like. And these are from Sutton-on-Trent, so you can see the burn marks here and stuff. So perhaps these are the result of some type of microwave radiation. It's acting in some way. And again, going back to the plant effects, which I mentioned, microwave energy would seem to address the following questions. What force, normally invisible, is capable of such action within a short duration of time, possibly 20 seconds? As you know, it doesn't take that long to heat things up in a microwave oven. What can account for the plasma balls photographed by Japanese and British scientists? Again, we mentioned these again a bit later on with some stuff by Ed Sherwood, where crop formations have later been discovered. How can crop formations occur either during the day or night and without the detection by local radar or night vision cameras? With or without any wind, for instance, in a mist, e.g. at night in Wiltshire in 1991, what could account for the mist often seen shortly after the formation of a crop circle? Is that some type of steam from this microwave heating? Possibly. Who knows? What could be responsible for the chirping and tweeting sounds recorded with crop formations and thought to be the cause of caused by high frequency radiation? I've got a sample of those noises which I'll play later on. The fact that there exists a means of identifying an authentic crop circle, i.e. bent stems, is a step forward in discovering the nature of the force that is responsible. That's perhaps a little bit contentious, but basically if you can, by looking at what you see in the effects on the crop and in the soil, you can learn more about how the actual crop formation was made. And again, we've got more information on this as we go through this. About plant growth, you can see here, this says August 2000, control plants from outside the 99 formation and from bottoms area 2000, sample plants from down the area 1999 dolphin, which are a darker green and taller than the controls. So in other words, these are from the downed area, this bottom one, and they've grown bigger and they're greener. And these are from outside the downed area and they're shorter and they're not as green. So we're seeing the plants behave differently. There's definitely been some effect on the plants, okay, a physical effect. So it's not just somebody stamping with a board, okay. And again, we've got twisting and spiraling, this sort of strange sort of melted effect, which again I think I've got a good idea of what causes that now. Okay, so what we're going to look at in what these samples have come from is they've come from this Canadian crop circle from 1999. Now, there's a very good website called BLT, it doesn't mean bacon, lettuce, tomato. It means, I forget what the B is, but T is Talbot and L is Leavengood. I forget the B, I keep meaning to check, but I keep forgetting the things that are flying around my brain. BLT Research, you've got on this website, it's a great website, have a study on the soil in a crop formation which was found in September 1999 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The fact that the field was infested with Canadian thistle, which made it almost impossible to walk in the field without high protective boots, tended to further rule out the possibility that this formation had been mechanically produced. In other words, board stomping. Somebody stomping on boards to do it. The full study is available online if you go and look at this at BLT Research's website. So let's see, we've got a 30.5 metre circle in the middle, a couple of few 10 and 11 metre circles outside, basically all circles all joined together. Total length of formation is 191 feet, so it's a fair size. It's not huge. I mean, you can walk a couple of hundred feet in a few minutes, but that's basically a fair size. I've got a video clip, I think, about this now.
The world's leading crop circle research group has been gathering samples for 14 years. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, not far from the hallowed halls of Harvard and MIT, is BLT Research. Nancy Talbot is the T in BLT. She's not a scientist, but she coordinates the gathering and testing of samples from crop circles. With 13 professional consultants in fields like chemistry and aeronautical engineering, BLT has compiled a huge amount of data.
I know that there is something which will enlarge our concept of reality by studying this, that we'll learn more things. We'll learn more than we know now about what we call reality.
BLT has published 3 papers about crop circles in 2 scientific journals. One study seemed to document that wheat seeds from inside crop circles developed at a different rate to seeds from outside. Another study analysed the presence of a strange iron glaze in one circle, a study clouded by the fact that hoaxers claim to have scattered iron shavings around the site. But most of BLT's research has focused on the plants themselves, and specifically the nodes, the hard, knuckle-like parts of the plant.
Perhaps the most critical of those early discoveries is the finding of elongated nodes down the plants from inside the crop circles. They are markedly stretched, elongated. The man-made formations do not show this change. It's the best documented parameter that we have so far, and the most consistent.
BLT also believes that some sort of heat source, perhaps microwaves, is blowing holes in the plant's nodes.
What happens, the tissue is too tough, it's too fibrous, it will not expand. And as the steam builds up, it simply blows a hole right out in the node itself.
BLT contends that the heat is generated by an atmospheric energy. Physicist Terence Meaden first proposed that atmospheric forces might create crop circles back in the 1980s. He theorized that a plasma vortex, something akin to an electrical tornado, could swirl down the crops. Eyewitnesses have reported both whirlwinds and balls of light over crop circles. But there's a problem. No one has yet proved that plasma vortices even exist. That doesn't worry BLT. They believe that 90% of all the circles they've tested were made by plasma vortices. They point to the fantastic shapes in nature as proof that a plasma vortex could create such a complex formation. Speaking personally, Nancy thinks this energy may be trying to communicate with us.
My personal experiences have suggested the possibility that this energy system is conscious, has a consciousness, somehow or other interacts with consciousness.
But Nancy wants people to focus on the science, which she thinks can prove the existence of as yet undiscovered forces.
As these results are made public, I hope they'll inspire more scientists, and eventually we have enough people asking enough questions, maybe we'll have an answer to what this is. I hope so. That's our purpose anyhow.
Going back to us, hopefully I've got some more video clips and hopefully they will play all right. That particular one might have been done in a slightly different way. But one, and we've already touched on it a few times, is that in the soil, is the soil effect. This is very important. Clay minerals, that's illite and smectites, extracted from the surface soils, taken at the same sampling locations as the plants, were submitted to X-ray diffraction analysis. This is basically where what you do is you get the soil, you put it in some fancy lab equipment, and you beam X-rays at it, right? And the X-rays, because of their wavelength, can tell you something about the crystalline structure of the material, how it's actually made up at a molecular or atomic level. Okay? The results were submitted to Dr. Robert C. Reynolds, Jr., a well-respected scientist, and he wrote this up. He said that in the Reynolds' words, the possibility of crystal growth seems remote. The degree of pressure known to be involved in causing crystal growth in sedimentary deposits would have, had it been present, completely obliterated the plants. And the 600 degrees to 800 degrees C temperatures over a period of several hours known to be necessary to promote such crystal growth in the laboratory would have, in the crop circle field, incinerated any plant material present. Additionally, a very brief burst of possibly intense microwave radiation, thought to be the cause of node elongation and the creation of expulsion cavities through the heating and expansion of the inside stem moisture, could not account for crystal growth. I know that's quite a bit of jargon, but if I can summarise that, what he's basically saying is, hey guys, it looks like this soil has been heated to 600 degrees centigrade. But if you look at the crops on top, there ain't no 600 degree, 800 degree centigrade heat there. Because if there was, you wouldn't have any crop, it would just be ash, or it would be all shriveled up. So in other words, you've got evidence of heat next to evidence of no heat. That's the important point to remember. I'd like to look at this picture and remember this for later as well. This is also from a BLT study. I only discovered this recently, or I remembered it. I think I discovered it, but I skipped over it. This is very important, this. This is a photomicrograph, 100 times, remember this figure, 10 to 40 micron diameter, spherical, magnetic particles of the type regularly found in crop circle soils. EDS, I don't know what that is, reveals these spheres to be pure iron. Iron spheres magnetised 10 to 40 microns diameter. Okay? The fact that they are magnetised reveals they were formed in a magnetic field. How interesting. Okay, let's remember that for later. We'll come back to that. Geological aspects of crop circles. Now, some researchers have noted that the geology of an area can be very important in crop circle phenomenon, perhaps because of the amount of water in the aquifer. Most of the area where crop formations are found in the UK is mainly chalk landscape. And Freddie Silver discusses this in the Sacred Sites field, so hopefully this will be a bit better with this audio clip.
There's two connections that seem to have come up predominantly in the research. One is the association, the historical association with the sacred spaces that still dot that part of the world. We have one of the largest concentrations of Neolithic sites anywhere in the world. Northern Europe, northern France, southern England, Wales, that whole area is very, very rich in ancient history. And what some of the early researchers like Delgado and Andrews found out was that the circles seem to be appearing beside, near to, in alignment with sacred spaces. These are places like Stonehenge, standing stones, the earthen mounds that we call the tumuli. There was a certain association with that, as if they were trying to remind us of an old, ancient spiritual technology that was still in the landscape and was now being utilized by the what I call the circle makers. There's also the idea that there was something about the geology of the land that was very much important to the way that the crop circles appeared, because southern England is very, very unusual in that it lies on top of a great big piece of chalk. It's the world's deepest chalk aquifer. And when you start plotting all the known crop circles on a map, it begins to take obvious note that they seem to favor this incredible large piece of chalk. Now, the same can be said of the Canadian prairie, except in the Canadian prairie we have limestone, and limestone is the chemical twin of chalk. So there seems to be a favoring of this particular aquiferous ground.
Why would that be, Freddie?
It seems that, and I'm not the first person to say this by any means, a number of people have looked at the aquifer connection with the crop circles, and it seems to me that the water is part of the actual manifestation process, because chalk and limestone both are very porous rocks, and again, limestone being the chemical twin of chalk.
Right.
And when you have water, and especially places where it rains a lot, and underground aquifers, where you have water that comes pouring through a chalk and limestone, you get an effect called absorption, and it means that when the water passes through this alkaline rock, it creates an electrostatic charge, which means that the whole area of southern England, for example, becomes very highly charged in terms of electromagnetic static energy. And I think that is part of the actual formation process, because when farmers have gone into the crop circles, first thing in the morning, one of the first things that they report is that the ground is absolutely bone dry inside the circle and very wet outside. It seems to be part of the process, that the energy involved in making the crop circles is favoring the water, because it certainly is drying it for sure.
So basically you've got there that he's talking about the importance of the charge that can be built up on a chalk landscape. And if it's dry in the morning, then this charge can be, maintained more. So we're talking about electrical charge. Now, but we have to cover the man-made circle issue, okay? We have to cover that, because yes, people make crop circles. It's a fact. You know, whatever all these crop circle researchers hate them, they want to shoot them, and all this. No, well, fair enough. You know, it does actually go on. And of course, we've got Dave, Doug Barry and Dave Chorley. Barry and Chorley stated to reporters that a small group of people can stomp down a sizable area of crop in a single night. Stomp does not mean using their feet. Simple tools to make crop circles have been described. However, Bauer and Chorley often retracted their claims of which circle they host, and when confronted and asked to provide details relating to the geometric relationships of certain crop circles, they would merely reply, "Oh, we didn't do that one," which is what you get. This sparked suspicion that they were merely trying to confuse the issue and make crop circles be seen as a fringe or esoteric field of research. This sparked suspicion that they were merely trying to confuse the issue and to make crop circles be seen as a fringe or esoteric field of research. Does that remind you of anything else? It's a rhetorical question. Now, this is May 1989, the Cheesefoot head at Winchester, England, made by Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley. Note the numerous rotations of the spiral fingerprint consistent with being made with a 1.2 metre wide stomper board. Okay, so you can actually see in the structure of the circle the width of the board essentially. Okay, so that's a pretty easy one to detect. But they've got a lot more sophisticated now. Now this is where it gets quite interesting, this circle makers group. I found this, I'd never heard of these guys before I put this together, but I came across them when I was doing research. And I'll just hesitate at this point. There are some DVDs that I've got there, which I didn't make. There's a chap called Richard D. Hall who's made this DVD, and he goes into more detail about this group. It's very interesting, and what he's found out, very interesting. Contrary to what some people think, there is an organised, disclosed group of people who purposely go out and make crop circles, okay? Often for corporate sponsors, okay? So they do them for advertising. Three of them are John Lundberg, and this particular character was very interesting to find out about in Richard D. Hall's DVD. I'm not going to go into it here. Rod Dickinson and Will Russell, and they use the following equipment: stalk stomper, 2-piece, 6-foot model; stalk stomper, 1-piece, 4-foot model; ball of pre-stretched nylon string, 2-foot long marking pole, 100-foot plastic surveillance tape, and a Pathfinder map. And of course, now you can get these GPS units if you want them fairly cheaply, so you can use those to help position yourself perhaps, although I suppose maybe not accurate to that high degree of accuracy for the civilian ones. Infrared image intensifier for doing working at night, dowsing rods in the pendulum, and I'd like to just play a little clip about them by Dr. Simeon Hine and see if this comes out right this time.
They take a lot of things into consideration. I was really impressed with their care and their sincerity. I actually thought these people were hoaxers, guys that going out after a night in the pub. That's what we had been told, and that's what I had been told by a lot of the researchers at a lot of these, crop circle conferences. I thought that was true. What I actually found were people that believed that crop circles are what they call natural magic. They had been experiencing a lot of really weird stuff out there at night. And I began to realize these aren't hoaxers. These are kind of like natural magicians who know that crop circles really do attract a lot of really strange stuff, and stuff that we can't totally explain. And these crop circle artists are actually believers like us in crop circles, except that they're, at least in England, they're making a lot of them.
All right.
So to answer your question, I think in England, probably a lot of them are being made by people, if not most of them. It hasn't always been that way. I'm just talking in the recent, maybe the last 10 years or so. Yeah.
So he's basically saying that he's praising these guys, sort of, Dr. Hine, saying that they care, they try and place these crop circles in the landscape, and but in certain cases, my understanding is, I haven't researched this, but they do go on trespass and do this without permission. So that's not a great thing to do, really. But then again, you'll see they do. Look what's there. They do this for money. They draw out their designs once they've been commissioned. For example, Mobile Phone Operator 02, and they did this display on the Sound. August 2003 bank holiday, they did this apparently. Now, why I've put this slide up particularly is if you look at this design, this is just for a single. This is the digit 8 look. And you can see it looks sort of reasonably complicated how that's just one digit 8, that design that they've drawn. So even for that fairly simple design, we've got sort of reasonable sort of complicated design that they've got to draw out to sort of, you know, think about how they're going to do that and reproduce it in sand. And that's in sand. You know, you're not going to get over any fences, or they're working in daylight for that one, presumably. So, you know, to take those things into consideration when you're thinking about how these things might be made. A couple of others they've done. At the beginning of 2004, circle makers John Lundberg, Rod Dickinson and Will Russell were asked by National Geographic TV to create a demonstration formation in daylight opposite Silbury Hill in Wiltshire for a documentary on the crop circle phenomenon. We decided to create a 200-foot formation incorporating a square and a spiral. So if you remember the 190-foot formation from before, from the 1990s, this is a similar sort of size. Until now, square spirals have not appeared out in the fields, probably because, unlike a circular spiral, a square spiral is a complex geometric form and difficult to create accurately. It took 3 of us a very sedate 5 hours to create, with lots of break in construction for filming. As far as we are aware at the time, no previous crop circle design had incorporated a square spiral, or water snake as it's sometimes called. But in one of those cosmic coincidences that happen frequently in a subject like this, we've now seen reports of a square spiral phenomenon at Woodingdean in East Sussex, which appeared a few days before we created ours on camera. Although unlike our formation, its construction seems somewhat haphazard. So they're comparing this to this, which of course, well, this is theirs here. This is probably a bit more complicated than theirs, because obviously you've got 3D effect, and you've actually got 3 spirals. So it's similar, but this one is, I would say, quite a bit more complicated. I'm not going to read all that text out, but basically you can see here's some of the other formations they've done from, I think it's for Nike, I believe, 3 trainers, massive footprints. They did several of these. So again, you know, it's easy enough. You know, you can do these things if you know, it's not. People can make these, you know, and they can make these unusual looking ones like that. It's actually fairly easy. Yeah, Nike logo, Nike swoosh, standing in the wheat. And this one, this is a bit more interesting. This is a War Circle Makers publicity. This time around it was the levelers pictured above you via the production company Jump 72 asked us to create their anarchy symbol as a crop circle to be used as a centrepiece in their latest video. The formation pictured above, which is this one, spanned approximately 200 feet, was created on a balmy summer's day, not a balmy summer's night, by circle makers John Lundberg, Rod Dickinson and Will Russell at Poynings, West Sussex in mid-August 2002, and took about 4 hours to construct. Initially, Jump 72 asked us to map out the geometry of the formation and then stop. Once this was done, we downed tools and were joined by 5 band members, Mark, Jeremy, Charlie, Simon and John, who under our instruction flattened a large proportion of the formation whilst being filmed. So this again looks like quite a, you know, fairly, you're getting there, there's one quite a sophisticated formation. But what I would mention is, if you look at the number of segments to this, you've really only got, I think, is it 6 or 7? 1, this segment here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments. So you've really sort of got 6 segments there to make. So you've only got, whatever it is, 7 or 8 channels to make. So it's a nice shape, but it isn't horrendously sophisticated, you know, and they did it in daylight as well.
I wouldn't like to do it.
No, I mean, I probably wouldn't like to do it, but I suppose if you get into the habit of doing these things, it's probably not that difficult. Now, towards the end of the 1992 season, our circle making team decided to test our refined techniques by attempting to produce what was at the time probably the most complicated design ever. This is just from their website, circlemakers.com. You can go and check this out yourself. It was whilst creating that formation that the following event occurred. As the sky grew darker, we slowly walked along the narrow footpath that ran alongside our intended canvas for the night. I knew we had to start early if we had a chance of completing the formation before daybreak. After about an hour, we 3 circle makers converged on the same point and began quietly discussing our progress. Suddenly, my attention was drawn to a light that had appeared from nowhere. It was a few hundred yards away and directly in front of us. As soon as I had registered its presence, I alerted my colleagues. Amazed, we stood there gazing at this football-sized orange light as it hung motionless about 40 feet above the surrounding countryside. After an estimated 5 seconds, the light began to slowly descend. Within another 5 seconds, it had descended to about 10 feet and faded into invisibility. Did we witness a naturally occurring phenomenon, or were we really being scammed by genuine circle makers? So they're experiencing weird stuff, even though they're out there making human-made circles, they're still experiencing weird stuff. I won't read all this out. Powerful burst of light, we all start to look round, and after a bit of head scratching, continued the formation. This was followed soon afterwards by an identical burst of light. A bright flash that seemed to emanate from the back of my own retina, from nowhere at all, in fact. I ran to where John is standing. You saw that one? Yeah, I saw. Saw wasn't the right word. 10 minutes later, I pick up a second, so they're seeing weird flashes. If you read their accounts, they're also reporting missing time as well. It's a short period of missing time. So they've had weird stuff